I would support 4, which resolve to opt out of the Three Waters Reform Project.
Personally, I find it abhorrent that the government intends to take over the assets, community assets, paid for by the ratepayers of the district, more particularly the former Gisborne City Council. And the arrogance with which we have not had information going forward and left us grasping.
It's not an option for us to opt in. There are such enormous holes between what the government is telling us. It makes real sense that the minister thinks that everyone should do this. If she trusts the numbers that we've been given, then you should draw that conclusion. In fact, our community should have drawn that conclusion. The fact that they didn't, even though there was that massive difference in cost to them, according to the government's numbers, tell us that they don't support it, even if that cost is lower. And I can tell you hand on heart, and Castellia has said exactly the same thing, that those numbers are not right and they can't be right.
I personally think this is one of the biggest legislative blunders that any government has ever done in New Zealand.
You're not going to hear an alternative view from me. I believe that everybody around this table is unsupportive of something with such vague information and poor justification at this stage. The only thing I'd like to stress is that we should not let anything happen to us. If we're going to go forward, we should choose our path.
People from Wellington, lots of people encouraging me to look at it more from a nationwide situation than a regional situation. And if you look at it like that, you could say there definitely are benefits for the country, especially for some areas that have got real problems. But I fail to see how it would benefit us with the information that we have. A weakness in this for me is I like to be able to deal with specifics, and they are never going to give us the answers on how they're going to handle our specifics, how they're going to handle drainways, Wainaki, how they're going to handle Wainui and metering and the wetlands. You know, right through this process, they're not going to be able to answer those questions. So we're going to be second guessing how they might treat those issues, which are our issues.
My worry would be is where will we sit in the big picture if this thing goes through? I'm also reading in the media that Minister Mahut is now saying she could push this through if she wants to, and I've got a feeling this is what they're potentially going to do. So in the back of my mind, I think, so what does that mean if they just suddenly come along and make this mandatory and do it to us?
Thank you, Your Worship. I didn't like it at the beginning. I really don't like it now. I said opt out at the beginning, and I'm saying opt out now. Centralisation never works for a region like ours. It just doesn't. I struggle to even find a model where it works for us, that as a unitary authority, we do cover 4 waters. And there is nothing in any of the information that's come out of the government proposal that allows for us to continue to do that.
I think we can all agree that the state of Three Waters in Aotearoa is in trouble. I think some of the rationale for the reform is valid, but when it comes down to the nuts and bolts, both on a national level and a local level, we've got problems. One of the biggest missing pieces of the jigsaw for me is the relationships and position of iwi mana whenua in all of this corridor. The absence of that alone causes me significant concern. I would like us to opt out in principle.
This is water. Water is gold, liquid gold. It needs to be respected in every framework manner that it can be, because we all need it to survive. So when the government tells me it's been robust with just two options, I'm sorry, I disagree. Now, I know they said they had a whole bunch of other options in this space. So I want to say thank you to Councillor Dowsing, who often does state some things I agree on. The solutions are in our hands.
Even though I feel like it may become compulsory, I agree with Councillor Robinson's that in principle, we need to make a stand and say, look, this is where we stand. Sweet. You've held our hands behind our back. Well, we have to go with it, legislation, but let's be really upfront with it.
I have to agree with what we have in our paper. We know that change across the country is needed in some shape or form. And this is what the government is proposing. But what is currently on the table is unacceptable.